This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, welcome back to another edition of AuthorU-Your Guide to Book Publishing. I'm Judith Briles, and with me is one of my favorite people, both because he's an awesome, incredible, off-the-wall, creative, award-winning cover and interior designer, Nick Zelinger, and he's also one of our sponsors for our show, so you hear about him every week. But we were commiserating the earlier in the week about what we're seeing now is almost a trend. And even authors who are smart, who've already been around the gate before, who have had a good-looking book come out and they decide, you know what, I know it all and I can circumvent and I can just do it all myself. And what Nick is kind of dealing with is saying, holy moly, there are errors everywhere. And then I'll get an email saying, did you know so-and-so did this? And I'm going, no. And then we have to come in and try to do a cleanup and without throwing too much egg on the author's face. And sometimes we're successful and sometimes we're not. But that if you are a DIYer, and I mean, I understand some people are really good in the DIY process, is that you need to make sure that you at least to get some coaching along the way. So at least you're heading off into the path that you're not going to let your ego run the trip versus some practical guidance. It doesn't mean you have to turn over the whole project to someone to micromanage it, because maybe you are the captain of the ship, but you do need some sage advice. Would you agree, Nick?
Yes, totally, Judith. I mean, I've been finding, and it is a trend, and it's probably a natural evolution of people saying, well, you know, I've done the class or I've gone through that and I know better. But invariably, that's not really ever the case. They think they know from their experience that they know how to do it themselves. But, you know, it's either a combination of trying to circumvent paying more money or having somebody they feel is overseeing their project, or trying to take shortcuts and doing it themselves. And really what happens, I would say the majority of the time, is that it falls short in terms of the writing and especially the editing. I noticed that as a designer, when you're formatting books, most designers can tell in 5 minutes if a book has been touched by a good editor or not. So I'm seeing a lot of these projects coming into me with authors saying, well, you know, I spent X amount of money and X amount of time on my first book, and I think I know what I'm doing on this. And you know, sometimes that may work out for them, but I haven't seen it yet. And I've just seen constant problems with just lack of professional touches to a book, and like you said, the oversight of the project. And that's not to say that an author can't obviously do some of that, but you know, this is an investment in time, money, and expertise, and a lot of that's falling short with some of these authors trying to do it themselves.
Well, and the as I call it, the rush to syndrome, or the rush to publish syndrome, is that they really think that they've taken some webinars, they've taken some courses, or they published a book. I mean, it's almost one of my pet peeves where someone publishes a book and all of a sudden they're becoming a book coach, and I'm going, oh my God, help me. Anyway, that what I'm seeing is that they'll go up to, first of all, they'll go to Fiverr. They go to Fiverr, which you and I don't have a problem for, to get maybe some ideas that then they take to their cover designer that they say, I kind of like this, now let's really turn it into a professional layout and design. Mm-hmm. Versus something, and I think you and I were talking about, I was sharing you a photo that one of my Saturday morning people brought, and she loved it. And 15 of us kind of looked at each other thinking, oh my God, what are you thinking? Because it was almost like some kind of a caricature that you drop in on a Saturday Night Live, or like, oh, well, or like, where in the world is Waldo? That was what I was thinking of, Waldo.
Yeah, it's kind of like cutting, it reminds me of being a child when I used to cut out pictures of Sunday cartoons, and glue them on a storyboard and make my own little characters that had that kind of feel to it. And I always, as part of my job as a designer, I don't always cringe, but I'm always stealing myself for when an author says, I know exactly what I want for my book cover. And I always go, okay, what do you got? And that's not to say that authors don't obviously have a great idea or have input. It's just that, especially authors who are the first time around or even the second time around, don't really quite understand, the nature that covers are essential to the process of a successful book. I mean, these are professional. You're dealing with your competition is the best in the world, so you're trying to compete with that. And it's covers they're a unique blend of marketing and art, and some balance in between that. So it is always a challenge to confer with an author about and consult with them about, gee, what is your idea, and then obviously trying to be diplomatic about saying that's not going to work at all because they're so close to their project,
Yeah, and that's the issue. And speaking of covers, I think that for everyone listening in, what you've got to keep in mind, and I've said this a gazillion times, your covers are designed as a focal point. And it's to, pick me up, look me over, read what's on the back. It's to grab attention. And if you've got too much garbage on it, and it does become garbage when it becomes too chaotic, too confused, that people just pass it by. It doesn't grab their attention instead of something really stark. And I know Nick and I worked on a cover, and I really thought I was going to lose and go down on it at the last minute. And we were able to pull him out of the author I Think I Know Better Ebbs. Yeah. And Courtney went with that solo image that just jumped off and became the grabber. And of course now he totally agrees, but it was really difficult to get him past it.
It is it's an understandable trait. I mean, habit, because authors are so close to their work, and they think that 4 or 5, 6 elements that are in the book, that are in the plot line, for instance, are so essential to depicting their message to the audience that they don't realize that 10 beautiful images on a cover just becomes one big mess. So it's not, you're right, it's the focal point. It's maybe one image very, very nicely subjugated to the title, for instance, and balanced with the title. So less is more, and all you have to do is go to a bookstore and look at the New York Times bestsellers, the best books that are out there, and you'll see that. It's a perfect example. There's tons of examples of why good covers work well, and there's obviously a world of mess out there with covers that look too busy and you don't know where your eye is going to go.
So I guess one of the first tips that Nick and I are going to give you before you rush to publish is you get into a physical brick-and-mortar bookstore and look what's new. Look how they're treated. And sometimes it's the title that is the focal point in the image. There is nothing else to compete with it.
That's true.
And sometimes it really does do a jump and works quite well. So
yeah, it's the contrast between image or a color, or the contrast between the title and the back. And I mean, we're also not going to be talking about if you're Patricia Cromwell or, Stephen King or somebody where your name is larger than the title. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with immediacy, where somebody has less than 10 seconds to understand that this is possibly a book that they would like to see. So, I mean, going to a bookstore is invaluable for many things, but it really is a great way to gauge where your book would be on the shelves, what your competition is, what works, what you aesthetically like. There's no such thing as stealing in this industry, and everybody uses the same thing, or it's advertising and art, and it's that combination. So you're looking at concepts and ideas and approaches, and it's that little bit of legwork can save a lot of time and aggravation, and hopefully get the author out of his or her own way of thinking they know what the covers should be about.
Well, and when I was thinking, the image that dropped into my mind when you're talking about multiple images, think of Andy Warhol. I mean, he did multiple images over and over and over, but they were the same image on some of his cover work, some of his art. I mean, if you're an Andy Warhol fan or not, but he certainly did repetitive things and variations, but it was always the same thing. So it had the ability to snag you. And he treated that same image with a little nuance here and there, whether in color or texture or something. But you're right. So and those are, that's a good example of just one image becoming, the focal point. And the same with cover design, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, if you've got a long title or short title, I mean, all those things come into play, but it's really, I mean, we talk a lot about covers because they're so essential to everything, because they're the gateway to the book. I mean, that's the starting point for a potential buyer to, maybe click on your book on Amazon or turn it over in a bookstore and read the back material, so. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, the reason why, I think this really supports our one book, one image. Oh, that could be a whole new campaign. One book, one image. Okay, that one of the things I'd like to suggest all of you who are listening in is when you're playing around with covers, whether you're doing it yourself or your designer sends them to you, do yourself a favor and reduce them to 25% of the size. Get them really small and look them over, and then you can see how that image displays, how it pops out, because that's how people are shopping, especially if they're looking on their phone. You're competing at less than 25%.
That's true. It's no longer just a laptop. It's either iPad or a tablet or your iPhone or some phone, but those thumbnails on Amazon become almost twice as small than your regular computer. So how does that stand out from, the 5 or 10 other titles that are maybe displaying on the little screen or something? So as a designer, that's one of the first things I do when I'm in the process of designing. I'll design 4 or 5 different concepts or more, and then I'll shrink them on the screen and to make sure what pops to me, because I have to see that too. Working too close is okay for designers so they can get detail and getting things perfected, but panning that down to a small size is essential to really seeing, okay, what grabs my attention? What would grab the reader's attention?
That's exactly because, let's face it, you're working on humongous monitors at times. All right, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a quick break from our fabulous sponsors. Nick Zelinger of NZ Graphics is with us today, and we're talking about some of the boo-boos that authors make as they rush to publish. This is Judith Briles.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Many of us have dreamed of writing a book.
Some of us even have.
Then the hard work starts.
You'll need an editor.
Who will design the cover or typeset the pages?
Who will format the ebook?
If you're a business owner, consultant, or coach with a serious message and expertise to share, the team of experts at 1106 Design can guide you through the maze.
They've helped more than 1,000 authors create top-quality books and avoid the not-so-reputable self-publishing companies.
Learn more at 1106design.com.
Then call Michelle at 602 866-3226. 1106 Design.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join AuthorU today through its website at AuthorU.org. Follow AuthorU on Twitter at AuthorU and on Facebook at AuthorU, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. AuthorU, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
First impressions are everything in the world of book publishing. Whether your book is an ebook, a print version, or both, your book cover needs to pop, sizzle, and sparkle to immediately capture the attention of your audience. And your book's interior needs to be just as dynamic and reflect the professionalism your readers demand. Nick Zelinger of NZ Graphics has won numerous national and international book awards for his cover designs and interior layouts. With over 20 years of experience in graphic design, he knows what it takes to create award-winning books and the many promotional pieces that authors need, such as posters, banners, postcards, one-sheets, business cards, logos, and more. Visit ncgraphics.com and see what authors and publishers have to say about their award-winning books and how NZ Graphics can make your book the success it was meant to be. That's nzgraphics.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
It's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing, and we're really looking at a lot of the components that get authors into trouble, and that's with a capital T, as they rush to publish. And one of the challenges, I mean, if you're hearing this live, you know, we're in the heart of one of the big selling seasons, which is as we lead into the holidays, and also right after the holidays when people have gift cards. So that one of the things is I'm hearing, and I'm getting calls daily from people saying, hey, I need a book to get it done by Christmas. And of course the response is, well, good luck to you. Because I can't, it's not on my calendar. You're not in my queue. But so Nick and I were talking about some of the cover things, and you know, I mentioned that you could go to some place like a Fiverr and get some samples and bring it back. And Nick had some other thoughts on that. But I think it's also important that we say this is not a cure-all. Cover design does cost money. It is art. And if you think you're going to get it for $5 or $25 and it's the cat's meow, you're probably in for a really rude awakening.
True. I mean, I have nothing against sites like Fiverr or the other online sites that you spend several $100s, for instance, and have a campaign or a competition, basically. Because at one point in time, I was one of those designers trying to get that kind of work too. So and there was some value in some of that, but cover design is its own different animal. I mean, this is not. We talked about this before on other shows. It's not just being about a pretty piece of art. It's being about the right piece of art for your book. And I don't think it's very hard for a third party at some point to understand the nuances and the complexities of what a book project is. So it's not just about, I got the nice piece of art for a couple $100s. is this the right cover for you? And that that involves consultation with the designer, some collaboration, but it doesn't involve just laying the money out there and hoping something good comes in. So I think cover design in of itself is just a bit more of a challenge than, say, I need some spot illustration or I need a logo. So I think you really do need, I bring this up because I just had a call yesterday from an author that I've never met that I'm working with now, and she's back on the East Coast in Virginia, and she says, well, I don't know where to go to get a layout designer or a cover designer. I just found you from, some networking with some people, and I said, well, you need to join AuthorU, or at least go to the AuthorU site, because we have service providers there. And, it's difficult for some authors, if they're not in a community of other authors, to know where to go to get these services, like a cover designer, for instance, or a layout designer, or even a logo designer. So I think, cover design, back to cover design, I think it's essential to establish a relationship with a book designer, and there are a lot of resources, especially on the AuthorU.org site, that you can find these people.
Well, and you're right, and it's like one big project we've been working on. As soon as the author contacted me, and my mind is going to work, and I'm thinking, okay, this, of my stable of designers, of which Nick is one of them, that I felt that another designer would be absolutely perfect for this book. And doing that. And then I knew that we would need to have a publicist. I could immediately reached out, did a virtual introduction to bring those together. I knew that she would need a social media campaign involved, and she had to build from scratch. So I reached out to, I can give the principles to that, but I don't run those campaigns. I'm up to my eyeballs dealing with my own stuff. But I can bring in people that can do it. She needs a virtual assistant. I know a couple of virtual assistants that can handle and then be handed off and take over those things. And then you come into the printing of where to go. Bringing a book together is not difficult with bringing the team together, because I work hard on making sure that they match. The other side, though, when we get in trouble is when the author decides they know better than everything because they read something, they heard something, or they have a friend who did something, or they really are not ready and they won't listen. That's where I run into snags.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same similar thing, and that goes back to that rush to publish syndrome, where authors will say, well, I did it. I spent, and like I said, I spent this much money first time around, and for your viewers out, your listeners out there, it is an investment in money and time and commitment. But when I get an author who says, well, I saved some money on a good editor, I've got somebody that I think is a really great editor, and it turns out that they're not. They're just not, and.
It's a girlfriend. Yeah. It may be a girlfriend. Yeah.
Or my girlfriend's an ex-English professor or teacher. It means nothing. But, I have conversations with other book designers, and that's one of our top pet peeves. We can all, when we're doing layouts for books, we can tell right away that a book has not been touched by a good professional edit, or even a copyright reader, because there's just punctuation problems throughout. But it's one of those things where you stop the layout and say, well, what do I do here as a designer? Do I just go ahead and charge this author for the layout, knowing that when it comes back for a cold read that there's going to be 100 problems and I'm going to have to charge again? So, due diligence for me is I just tell the author, I ask them, have you had it edited? And, of course, they will say, yes, I had it edited by so-and-so. And then you have to have that conversation with them about, well, is that a professional editor? Well, no, that we have that conversation again. So editing, I think editing is, to me, one of the most crucial things that authors tend to circumvent when they're rushing to publish. And it shows, and then they wonder why their books are not successful.
Well, yeah, I know, Nick, that you're working with two people who jumped the gun, and that it didn't go through that one final. There's multiple stages of editing, and you are going to spend money here. All of you listening in, you need to understand that there is money going to be spent, and if you're a really good writer, you'll spend less. But if you need help with your writing, and a job of an editor is to make you look better. Always understand it. The job of an editor is not to take over your book and put it in their voice. That's taboo in my book. But it's to support you and strengthen what you bring to the party. And some authors who have absolutely spectacular ideas suck as writers. And they actually would be better off with a ghost in play that they work closely with. But they go ahead and they take the stab at and work on it, and then they have to turn it in to what's called a developmental or a content editor who really try to bring it together. So then a copy proof editor can get involved the next stage. What they do is become actually your co-writer in many cases, but they don't get any credit for it. They're just trying to make your concept, your idea sing. So it's cohesive and it connects. And then, then we go to, and Nick and I have worked on books that when we go to my third stage, which is really post layout, and we go into the cold eye edit, and we just had a book that maybe had 12 minor changes, nothing really that took more than a few minutes to tweak through on it. Other times we may have 100 tweaky changes, like we pick up a misspelling, they add a comma in, there's missing quote marks. That's what that final run through. It's not a rewrite, although some authors seem to think, I can rewrite this sentence again. And that's where we grit our teeth in the process. But it's multi-stage. So if you're rushing to publish, you're not going to take the time. And what it tells me as a reader when I pick up a book that feels disjointed, and I've seen manuscripts that get turned in where characters are one name in the beginning and 8 chapters later they've changed their name or who they were married to or when an event took place or they worked at another place but it was at the same time. All these things, that's where an editor should be catching that stuff and calling it, and it takes a lot of work. I'm telling you, it takes a lot of work, and then so we see that that's a big bugaboo of mine.
True, mine too, and that shows you that. Authors will write a book, and may take them years to write a book, and they may be working a chapter at a time, or they may just be working on separate chapters, and they don't have the entire big picture in mind anymore, and those little crucial elements get missed in terms of storyline connects and stuff. So a good content editor's job is obviously to look at all that and make sure that all those points fit right and they're all correct. And that, like I said, that rush to publish to get it out, because we can do that now. We can rush to publish. That temptation is there. But then authors go, well, I don't like this process. I'm disappointed. I've got bad reviews. I've got no sales. And, that goes back to, well, you know what? Book review companies like Kirkus Reviews and Forward Book Reviews and Blue Ink Review and all these professional editor services, they can catch, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a well-written book. And if they don't see that professional edit in place and that, they're going to give you a bad review. And then you've, just by that rush to publish, desire to do that, you've jeopardized that book with a bad review. So that's an important, consideration.
Well, I actually had someone contact me who, through the AuthorU group on LinkedIn, who was being just bashed on Amazon for the book. And he says, what do I do? And I said, well, looking over your reviews, I would suggest you take it down and you need to redo it.
True, and then that goes back to the the other thing with rush to publish is another great way, if you're really serious about having a campaign for your book, is to maybe do advanced reader copies. Maybe your first print run is a very small run that you send out to select reviewers or a circle of readers that can catch inconsistencies in your plot line or just, some editing.
And that's their assignment. You tell them that's it. Well, for your friends and family, you give those to them. You tell them that that's your assignment to do. And also, I think it's really important to say, I know you're my friends. I know you're my family, and I know you care for me, but this is about the book. And if you see mistakes, if you see areas thinking, my God, what were you thinking? You need to point those out to me.
Yeah, I mean, and we work with many authors that have done that have taken the time to have that system in place, and it's worked wonders for them because they've caught a multitude of little things and some big major things, so that when they go to spend that money on that next print run that really goes out to distribution, that those little problems and sometimes really big problems have been fixed, and then you guarantee a lot better results in reviews and sales.
And that's the home run. All right. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll come back and talk more about things to keep you out of the rush to publish syndrome. I'm Judith Briles. It's AuthorU-Your Guide to Book Publishing, and with me today is Nick Zelinger of NZ Graphics.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on your guide to book publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers, creating beautiful and well-made books. We're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, rush to publish. It's something that all of us in the book creation business cringe when we get the phone call or the email that says, I need a book like next week. and that's a good luck. Now, one of the problems is that with the ability to do print on demand, that it's really made a whole model, the rush to publish model, acceptable for most of them. And then when they do get crucified in reviews or feedback or book sales that started off with a brisk, I sold 10 copies, to 0, which is what's going to happen, is that when that happens, then they start thinking, what can I do here? Or what did I do wrong? Or they may have the attitude, well, no one can ever be successful publishing. Why bother? I mean, I've heard it multiple ways on that. And so I think what you've got to do is really look at what is the purpose of your book. And I don't know, Nick, if you have conversations with your authors when you're involved with the design.
I do actually. I've done this. Through years of working on this, and obviously in collaboration with you, I've learned a lot about vetting, the big picture and talking to authors. Let's sit down and talk about what your goals are for this book, and that's, because it may range from, I've got a legacy book and I'm just wanting to sell this to my family, for instance, as a gift, versus I want to sell millions of copies. That runs the gamut in publishing. People who want a book out for their family and people who want to have a career as a writer. So you kind of trying to figure out where they fit in that spectrum, and then say, well, let's have a game plan here. Let's see where the first point is and where your end point is, and what steps you need to do so that you could be successful. But it does take planning. It takes finances. You still can do it at a good cost point if you really do map out a strategy in terms of goals and deadlines. So it's not that I finished my book and gosh, I'm going to speak at this engagement next month, and I really need to have the book out now. That's not really good planning, and I see that a lot. So with either fiction writers or nonfiction writers. So it's really having a conversation with a new client about where they are in the process of their book and what their goals are, and trying to really kind of guide them to a reasonable outcome and planning.
Mm-hmm. And I should say to all of us, to our listeners here, that it's not that I haven't flipped a book, brought a book in, and really done the rewrites I need to do within and get it to layout, and layout gets it done in a week, and by God, we get it to print, and we are out the door in a month. But it does brain damage. I'm telling you, it does brain damage to me, because I've had to, number one, push everything aside and be so focused and concentrated, and sometimes working 14, 18-hour days to get this thing done and out, that it slows me down so before I can get caught up again.
True, we've done a couple of projects like that recently where it's been out of the gate real fast, and it's not fun for anyone.
No, it's not fun. It's exhausting, and of course we will find little things as we go back for, and then sometimes we sit back and we'll go, geez, we really did that one well. But also that's when you have a well fine-tuned team in play that can get, and you can almost telepathically think what the other ones are thinking as it comes together, and the author almost gets out of the way and lets us do our work. What happens with the rush to publish is we a lot of times have authors who are dabbling so much, and they keep changing, and they're going to decide they're going to rewrite as we're moving along, and they don't get, especially when you're working on Nick's side of it, that once you are in layout, that you're talking about another layout. Are you prepared to pay for another new layout? They somehow, Nick, seem to think that it's just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste.
That's true, and it's. I know it's can be a very boring discussion to explain technical things to authors sometimes about how designers work, but it's not just, I take your Word file, if that's where your manuscript is, and dump it into Adobe InDesign or Quark Express, the two leading software programs for books, and then automatically it just displays the way you want it. Designers work line by line because they're setting margins and they're setting font styles and sizes to fit that book, and we don't have the luxury to read the book in detail when we're laying it out. We're doing it line by line, so we have less hyphenations and there's aesthetically pleasing read and there's not weird spaces. So I've had many talks with authors through AuthorU about how to set up their files so you negate a lot of those little problems, like 2 or 3 spaces between sentences. There's all these little technical things, but you're right, and it's costly to go to layout, do the layout on a 200, 300-page book, for instance, and then have the author say, I rewrote chapter 13 because it was either wrong or I had misinformation in it. Well, that's fine. They'll be happy to take your money to redo the book, but it affects the deadline, it affects the timeline of the project, and it affects the layout, and it's extra work and extra money for everybody. And that's something I really like to try to avoid. I really don't like charging authors extra for that work, but we certainly will. But that's stuff that can be avoided.
Well, also, here's what happens to me when I keep pulling around, or they decide, oh no, I've substituted this chapter in. Oh no, I'm doing that. We actually will lose interest. We may have loved what you were doing in the beginning, and we were so enthusiastically behind it, but we get involved in almost like a whipsaw. We don't know which way you're going because we thought we were going down a path here because you said this is what you wanted to do and this was what your goal and all that is, and all of a sudden there's multiple redirects going on. So it creates confusion, and it's almost like you need to go away and rethink it, what you really want to do.
Yeah, because at that point, everyone's lost focus, and even the author, and then we can't tell, where we were going from the beginning. So it does create confusion. So it goes back to that planning, not the rush. Don't rush to get your ducks in a row, get your team together that's working, and that usually will result in success if you can do that. But that rush thing is what we're talking about. Is it does open up Pandora's box for problems.
Well, it is Pandora's box. And here's another thing that in the rush to publish that, some people are really good at multiple tasking, and they can, and authors can handle multiple projects. I remember one year I wrote 3 books in 1 year, and I thought, and I'm not a fiction writer, I'm nonfiction, and none of them were connected. None of them were connected. And I felt like I had brain damage by the time I came out and said, I'm not going to do this one again. And I'm quite good at multitasking. But I think that if you've got 2 ideas going down the track, you need to do a prioritizing of which one needs to take preference so you can concentrate and get it done. And it's not that I don't say, it doesn't mean that you can't work and you can do the hunter-gatherer and bring in. And sometimes writing and then switching to another gear will give you a relief that you need. It's like a timeout. I get a timeout corner that I can go into. But if your goal is to really get a book done the way you want it, you're going to have to start eliminating things and saying no to things. And that's always hard. And especially if the goal is to create a quality book, or going back to here, what's the goal? If I want to create, as Nick says, for my family and friends, which we also call a legacy type of book, that if you're going to do that, should it have the same care that a book that you want to sell to the general public? I hate to say this, but this is my book snobbery coming in. I say yes. I would still want an edit done. I don't want to see paragraph perpetuity going on. I want to see it kind of laid out so it looks slick, click, and readable. But everyone's going to be different. You have to decide what you want this outlook to come from. So do some visualization. What do you want your book to look like? And realize that it's probably not going to happen overnight.
True, and we're just really talking about right now, writing and design and printing. We're not even talking about all the other elements of a successful book campaign, which is marketing and social media. And so Rush to Publish throws those things out the window. So there's a big picture here for a lot of authors who are really dedicated to wanting to have a successful book. So it does require a game plan, a strategy, and you've got that in your AuthorU book about mapping that out. And those are essential things for an author to plan with their team. So because some authors, like you said, can multitask, and some of them are very good, but let's face it, even I, as an author, don't want to do social media stuff because I'm too busy. And we teach them, well, if you can't do some of that stuff, then hire people who can, because not everyone's going to be adept at getting on Pinterest and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and even on websites to do the essential things they need to do for marketing. So that's a whole other element that we're not even talking about that will affect the success of a book when you're rushing to publish. We're just right now just focusing on the writing and the editing and the production.
Yeah, we're trying to get the product ready. I mean, our goal is to get your product ready. The real work, and by the way, that's going to be 10% of your energy. That will be 10% of your energy in realism. And one of the things that authors think, well, but it's taken me so long to write this book. Or maybe it didn't, but whatever it is. But I put all my energy in, and, I haven't been paid to write it. And now I've got to go pay all these people like you guys to get it out there, heaven forbid. And now I've got to take all my time and energy again now, and I've got to market the bloody thing. Well, it's a product. And your book is your product. So what are you going to do to support it so it can get off its belly and learn to walk and hopefully run? And that actually, all that needs to be thought about as you are writing. Most authors don't. They wait till it's all done. And then we go through the the sky is falling, I don't have any marketing in place. What am I going to do? How am I going to catch up? I wanted to launch my book next week. Oh my God, what am I, I hear this all the time, Nick. I don't know about you.
Yeah, it's that reality check. Authors are dedicated. They should be dedicated to writing, and that's fine, but they also do need to have that element of just reality in there. It's like you're writing, that's fine, but there's a whole bunch of other tasks involved after you're writing that that come into play. So you have to understand that without those things, your writing is not. If no one sees your book, you won't be successful. And if you're a good writer or a bad writer, it's the same thing. You really do need to have some sort of system in place to market your book and to get your book out there. But good writing is just not going to find its way to the surface, and the world's going to discover it. There's a lot of probably wonderful books that no one will ever see. So the writer has to get some sort of, like I said, a reality check with all the other elements that have to come into play, not just production.
And we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back with some final tips. How do you stop the rush to publish train and get it back on track so you are successful and meet your goals? I'm Judith Briles. It's AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. you need the Book Shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems, you want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, or by a publishing service provider, or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the Book Shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at My Book Shepherd and on Facebook at The Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right. In our final segment, Nick and I have been talking about a lot of different variables here that we consistently see coming in. And it really, my whole thought when I reached out to him and I said, Nick, I'm going cuckoo because I'm seeing mistakes all of a sudden that they're bringing to me now, post layout, that shouldn't have been happening. Simple mistakes. And he says, well, they did an end run. They're going around because they think they can do it themselves. And it's a classic rush to publish. Okay, so I've done this once. Surely I can do it again. Or I've listened enough to other people that surely I can do this again. I mean, what's doing a book? Anybody can do a book.
Yeah.
No, they can't. No, they can't. And that is as much as I know, and I know a lot about book publishing, I would never think of designing my own book. I would never even take on designing my cover. It doesn't mean I don't have ideas. And I don't say to Nick, hey, our sheepy guys, I think they'd be ideal to do here and use them here. Or when we do this, I think this would be ideal. Or I'd like to see a big splash of color and just turn it loose and let him come back to me. I mean, it doesn't mean that I don't give him input or any of the other designers we work with, but that I trust that they know what they're doing and give me a couple of rounds and let's see it, see what happens here, see what magic, and trust that it comes into play. So, and then also going down to bookstores to see what is contemporary. How do you compete? What do your competitors look like? Where will it go on the bookshelf in the bookstore if your book was there? That's what's really critical, to be realistic in that. And don't be afraid to ask a book buyer in the store what they think of your book idea, your concept. Where would it go if it came in? Those are all really helpful tips in that. And that's part of your homework as you move into publishing in this arena. So, Nick, if you had someone that came in let's start with a newbie person. What would be your wise steps to tell them to do? 1, 2, 3, kind of.
Well, I think the first is to make sure that to let them know that to select a good designer. If they don't know where to go to find a designer, either for cover or interior, and sometimes those could be 1 or 2 different people, but to give them the resources, or at least the points of where the resources are, to get a designer for their book and their cover, because they will, and also to let them know that it's a collaborative process, that it's just not, like you mentioned before, you give me ideas for covers, and a good designer will really value that. I like direction when I'm doing that. I do so much work that I prefer to have somebody tell me, at least the starting point, so that I have nowhere to go. So I would tell them to get find a designer to vet, to investigate, to consult with. The second thing I always ask is your book edited? Do you have an editor? Do you know what an editor is? Do you know what kind of an editing you need? And then from their answer, I can pretty much tell if they know what I'm talking about, or if they've got that in process. So those are the first top 2 things. The next thing I usually ask is, are you going to print on demand? Are you going to a traditional printer? And I can tell by their answer if they know what either of those situations mean. And if they don't, I can confer with them about that, because I'm trying to find where they are in the process of the book, and in terms of what their goals are. Some authors who've done one or more books will know those answers, but a newbie won't. So you kind of guide them to that process. Usually, to step 1, they usually don't know anything about any of that. I don't know where to find a designer. I don't know where I'm going to print. I don't even know where to get my ISBN numbers, or I don't know what an ISBN number is. So there's a lot of little elements that you have to kind of guide the newbie through to make it less intimidating.
And also we bring up, too, even if they are doing a offset print run with a traditional printer, that you consider having a POD as a backup for a variety of reasons. And that's why we've been pushing a lot of our AuthorU members to take advantage of the discounts we get with Ingram Spark and have that available, because a bookstore can order through Ingram. And a library can order through Ingram, and it helps in this distribution game.
Is there also global distribution or availability with things in Ingram?
Exactly.
So we've got some authors that are selling overseas really well, and so that print-on-demand aspect, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about independent publishing right now, is that you have so many options for print, and print-on-demand is, I think all authors should have that as their backup, because you never know when you're going to need that.
You could run out. And when you have those files set up, they're in place, bang, you can get, but will you pay a little bit more? Yes, you will. You will. But you'd be amazed. And I know that when Nick and I were testing out Ingram Spark for my book, The Crowdfunding Guide for Authors and Writers, we were stunned at how good the color was. We were stunned, weren't we, Nick?
Yeah, it was a great surprise, and it was a good experiment. We were a little worried at the beginning, but the results turned out great. So I'm delighted that we had that option for authors that want a color book, for instance, and just the fact that the setup for Ingram has gotten it's easier to walk an author through, but that's one of those systems that they need to get involved in, so that they have that as either their primary printing source or at least their secondary one.
Yeah, it's just smart. It's a strategy. It's part of the game plan. And Nick has mentioned game plan. It's something I'm all over and about. All right, so we're talking about, one, let's connect with a designer. I know when I bring in a new author, I start thinking, okay, what designer would be right for them? And if depending on the time of day, it is not uncommon for me to make a quick call to one of you and say, hey, I've got this author. This is the book. Do you have a few minutes so we can talk about it? So it works. It's very common to do that. I mean, Nick, we brought you in on calls before.
Yes, very much so, and it's a great way to start the project. And I'm a big believer in if I'm not the right fit, there's certainly a designer out there in our team that can be the better fit for you. So it's all about getting the right team together for the author so that we maximize success.
Yeah, which is my job. And I have to also say that not every designer is going to be the right designer, and understand that. There are some people I know, for example, I have only one designer I go to when I do cookbooks. Because I love what she does. There is only 2 editors I go to do the cookbook editing, who will know instantly, oh my God, this isn't a tablespoon, it's supposed to be a teaspoon, that will know that kind of thing for that. And then, for me, what's fun for me, I come back and look at those cookbooks because I actually read cookbooks. So I love when I get a cookbook in play. It always is very fun for me.
True. And that takes a certain skill to do cookbooks. Because they're all different. Every book is different, but cookbooks are inherently very different from each other, or they should be. So, the designers that we have that do that are just phenomenal. So,
yeah, it's a totally different layout, and you're splashing with color everywhere. Oh my gosh, It's everywhere. All right, so steps are: we make sure connect with the designer, make sure you have editing, and determine which kind of editing that you're looking at. Think about, okay, how am I going to print this baby? And am I going to do it in paper? Am I going to do hardback? Am I going to do a case laminate where I print the case, the cover on the hardback case? What am I going to do with those variables? Those things you need to start noodling and start thinking about, because if you're still in the writing process, it actually will help drive you. Because you can actually start envisioning the end goal, which is very exciting. And what I love bringing about with a cover with my designers really early is we start working on that cover. And when we have that cover in play, you know what? You get your book up on Amazon, and you can actually get positioned and place it, and you can doodle with it and get it around. Eventually, you can open it up to the public and start taking pre-orders. You'll push off. There's a lot you can do here, and put it into play on that. But rushing to publish is not something you want to do. If you haven't gotten anything from these past 50 minutes, it's that it leads to mistakes. It leads to significantly reduced book sales. And, we haven't even talked about the fact that all of a sudden you're going to be apologizing for mistakes in your book from the back cover. There'll be, there's typos on the back cover.
Yeah, it's hard territory to recover from, and you really have. There's a lot of. It does cause embarrassment for the author, and you want to avoid that at all costs. You don't want to get out the gate with the wrong thing.
That's an amen. That's an amen. All right, Nick. So we're kind of doing a wrap up. This is really just kind of, I wanted to bring it together because there was a lot of authors rushing to try to meet the holiday sales. And just to recap, if your goal is to have your book into a bookstore for holiday sales, you're selling to bookstores back in April and May, no later than May. They bought for the season, for the October, November, December seasons. They're done with that. You may be able to tap into your independent bookstores, which we both encourage you to make sure you know who they are and connect with them so they can be, partner with them. You can do a lot. And also, one of the best ways to sell books during this time is I had an early morning call with a client back east today and saying, this is where you pull in your chits. All those people, your friends who love you, they need to be hosting parties for you where you will come as the guest and the author and sign books, and their friends come and they buy them from you. That's what happens to push some of these sales at this time of the year. All right, Nick, thank you for being with us once again today. Thank you for being a sponsor.
It was great.
Right. Have a happy Thanksgiving that's going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks.
Same to you and same to our listeners. All
right. Take care. All right. Keep on writing, keep on publishing, and we'll see you next week on AuthorU, your guide to book publishing.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each week, a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take you, the author, to the next level. You'll learn tips and secrets on how to create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve book publishing success by making one very simple change in your book's journey. How to avoid the publishing predators. How to create an author and book platform that rocks. Learn how to make a living with your words and your books. Learn how to publish a book that has no regrets, and so much more. For more information, check out AuthorU-Your, where authors who want to be seriously successful go. And Judith's website, thebookshepherd.com. Then join us again here next week for more. It's Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific on the Rockstar Radio Network.